Welcome to another edition of The Insiders. Our apologies that we're 15 minutes late in starting. I absolutely love the hotel I'm in, but this is the second time the internet has failed me. As it went down this morning, it came up 1 minute before showtime and about 10 seconds after I bumped our start back. Tim Fitzgerald in Vegas, Brian Hanley in Frisco, Glenn Kinley somewhere in Illinois, and Tim Everson, I assume, in Manhattan.
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yes.
We're really spread out today.
Welcome to the Insiders, everyone. We got a lot to talk about as Kansas State loses at Texas 33-30. It was a really strange game, and that's where I want to start in a second with Brian. But I also want to warn you that I'm producing off of a different device. My producing things are down here, and my camera's up here to try to lessen the load on the Wi-Fi. So if I'm looking away, it's going to get annoying for all of us. But the side of my head is sexy as hell. I'm just going to be honest. It looks really good. Okay, let's get going, boys. Brian, that was a weird game. My buddy Chip Brown, who covers the Longhorns, we've been good friends for a long time, texted me, that might be the weirdest game I've ever covered. And it was a strange game. There were so many ebb and flows and changes and good play and bad play. It was bizarre. Give me your overall thoughts on this one.
Yeah, I mean, it was weird. Just coming right out of the gate, K-State wasn't ready to play. They were not ready. They had a bad plan and just were not ready to play the football game. I don't think they understood the skill level or the speed that Texas actually possessed, and it played out that way. And then for it to just flip, let you know that if K-State comes out ready to play, the game's a lot closer at the beginning, because once they got into the game and understood, hey, we can play with, we're just as good as these guys. It was just weird that they didn't come out. I don't know. I'm not going to be too harsh today, but it was just a mess on how they just didn't come out ready.
Tim, you were there. Here's a little secret. I was editing photos from inside a casino in Vegas for our site to use. The photos coming out of the wire services were definitely pro-Texas. I didn't get much K-State stuff from them, so I used sports information stuff. Both photos showing dour-looking players as if they just got, their hearts broken. VJ Payne with our post-game analysis, and my walk and talk, I think, was Phil Brooks. Those were pre-game photos, and they already looked defeated. And you know what? It's just a snapshot. You don't know, but it kind of indicated to me that maybe psychologically this team wasn't ready. You were there. What do you think?
I mean, it certainly felt that way, especially offensively. It just felt like it was watching someone run into a wall, take like 3 or 4 steps back, run back into the wall, take a couple more steps back. I mean, it was maddening to watch. Now I don't want to lump the entire team in there, because the defense figured it out way before the offense did.
Yeah.
Yes.
The number one reason why this even became competitive in the first place. So I got to give credit to them once they kind of figured out some formational things to kind of help kind of tamp down the pass. Once they got a little more pressure on Malik Murphy, things started to shift. But it was very, very frustrating first quarter and a half to sit through.
Yeah, it was ugly. It had to be a lot of fun to be a Texas fan for that time period, because it was pure domination, with the one exception, Glenn, he just mentioned it, or someone did, that the red zone, they didn't finish drives. I feel like Texas could have had 35-0 at halftime, and they weren't. Yeah. And that's been the signature of this Texas team, is to not finish drives. And then Sark wants to go for it instead of kick the field goal, and he ends up with nothing. The defense did keep this team enough connected to the game where a comeback was in the realm of possibility. I didn't think it would be possible, but they did.
Yeah, it was interesting. It felt like Texas in the first half even was giving K-State every opportunity to get back in the game. And at times, if we're going to be honest, it felt like K-State was saying, no thanks, quit offering, because it felt like there was a fumble or a turnover or interception, and K-State just wouldn't do anything with it. And then they finally did. Like Brian said, it took the offense longer to get going than the defense. But when they finally did, I think they showed that they can play with those guys, right? They showed that when they're playing at their best, they can hang with anybody, right? The first quarter, it was giving me some Alabama flashbacks. I was like, are we just outmanned? That was my thought.
They were. They
I
were.
said they might just be better. That's the problem. Might just be that we don't have the guys, and they proved me wrong in the second half. And I never verbalized that or really fully thought that, but a thought popped into my head. And the second half case, they said, no, we do have the guys. We can play with these guys. And then they still ripped your heart out probably 3 or 4 times. I think there was probably 6 or 7 times in this game where I said, all right, it's over. They lost.
Yeah.
One of them was in the first quarter. Probably 3 of them in the third and fourth quarter, and then once or twice in overtime. And then finally it did happen. And that's one that hurts for, I think, people everywhere.
Yeah, I think the turning point of the game was the moment I tweeted it's Avery Johnson time because they had fallen so far behind. He might as well play the kid. Then Will Howard just started throwing it all over the field. And Brian, I was troubled by the game plans.
Yes.
You could be mad at the players for being flat, but I don't feel like the game plans, at least in the first half, did not put these kids in a position to win a football game. They were too passive on defense, trying to sit back in the zone. Look, I know the BYU game was one game, but I said it immediately about Malik Murphy. You give him any semblance of pressure, his completion percentage plummets, and he makes bad decisions, which we saw in the second half. And K-State sat back in an 8-man zone look, hardly getting any pressure. The kid has incredible arm talent when he's comfortable. They let him go. They just let him go early on. And offensively, well, that kind of explains itself. They needed to get to the passing a little bit earlier.
Yeah. You're 100% on the money. The game plan, let's just say it was awful to start the game. I don't understand how you're in zone and guys are running past you. That's mind-boggling to me that kept happening, but it did. And then we're rushing 3 guys and we're not getting any pressure. I know I've talked about it a million times, but I'm never going to let it go. You're not getting pressure on big-time competition when you rush 3 guys, especially when one of your guys in the first-round draft pick. That just doesn't happen, and it didn't happen, and he had all day to throw. Lo and behold, they changed it. Things changed, so it just – the defense figured it out. Like Tim said, the defense figured it out a lot sooner than the offense. But the offense, I don't know. I really don't know. Constantly running the football when you knew that you were having problems running the football. I'm like, just stop. Don't run the football anymore. What are you doing? And it didn't stop the entire game. We were not able to run the football. So, and I know a bunch of people said, well, Avery in there. He wasn't going to do anything either. They could not stop them. They couldn't move the line of scrimmage. I mean, I'm not mad at all the line. Look, Texas has got some guys. We talked about it. Their defensive line, those guys they're athletic. We couldn't push them around. They pushed us around. That's what happened. But they weren't getting a pass rush on us, and we were able to throw the ball. We should have got to that a lot sooner. We talked about it on this show last week. We're going to throw the ball, set up the run. We all said it. That was not what we did, and it cost us.
Yep, I agree. Just let me check. Glenn, was he modulating for you, or was that just on my end?
Yeah, no, he sounded a little bit like T-Pain. We could hear him most of the time, but I think he just was incorporating auto-tune.
Well, why don't we just call him B-Pain the rest of the show? Look, I usually wait for questions on this, but our friend K-Ned from our message boards, Wabash Station over at Go Powercat, really brought up something really good. Let me read it here off my other monitor. I'm an established run first person too, which I am, and I know Big B is. But if the opposing defense comes out in a stacked box, regardless of QB, you can't run. You got to throw the ball. You got to loosen them up. And this was my point, Tim. You were there. I always believe you got to establish a run, and that doesn't mean run for yardage. That means make them commit to being in the box. Make them choose if they're going to defend the pass or the run. You can run for 33 yards in a game. If they want to stack 8 in the box, that's great. Then your passing lanes are open. But they continue to run into that box. I didn't get it. I'm like, okay, they're giving you the pass, take it.
Yeah, and I think that it was after the third punt, after the third attempt to run Will Howard up the middle for nothing. That I don't know why that didn't click. I don't know why, when they had Avery out there only to hand the ball. I don't know. There were so many things that just made no sense why it didn't kind of dawn on them sooner. Because once it clicked, it clicked. I mean, once it clicked, they were, if they had started even a drive sooner, they probably would have won this game. I don't know. I mean, it just seemed, uh, I don't know. It'll be interesting to talk to Colin Klein this week and just kind of get his insight into what that was. Because I don't think Coach Kleiman didn't have much to say on kind of why they said they wanted to establish the run. He said that they wish they would have tried to establish the pass a little bit sooner, but the reasons why were not particularly clear after the game. So it'll be interesting to find out.
Is it possible this was just a case of 2 previous weeks of offensive line domination of K-State almost being like, well, surely we can move these guys. Surely, 2 straight weeks of just having their way with the opposing D lines. And you could even say a little bit of a third week before that. And now they go to Texas and they wanted to do the same thing. And when it didn't happen, they just didn't adjust quickly. And Texas did. What did Texas do? K-State wasn't bad on the run early. Texas just threw it long, and it worked. And it took K-State longer to realize that this was going to be a passing game.
It really was. Brian, look, he's exactly right. This offensive line's been dominant for a few weeks, but that's an NFL front. That is the very strength of that Texas program. Mm-hmm. We do talk about the quarterbacks, the receiver, the tight end, the running game, and just the defense in general. But it's really about that Texas front that makes them so good and makes them, honestly, more equipped to play in the SEC than Oklahoma, I think, for week in and week out. Because there's always a shortage of big, fast defensive linemen, whether it's a 300-pound tackle or someone at 260 on the edge. Right. They get those players, as does Alabama and Georgia and LSU and some of those schools. Look, Cooper Beebe can take that because he's an NFL guy. Maybe someone else on the line can, but some of those guys they weren't able to move anyone, and that should have been known coming in.
Should have been known. Should have understood what we had to do. Again, I'm not going to crush the coaching but I am going to crush the plan. It was just a bad plan. Let's just call it what it is. And you should have known that from the very beginning. I mean, because there were outside zones, inside zones. We tried stretching them across the field, trying to run our jet sweep game. None of it worked. And at some point, you just have to say, okay, guys, it's not going to work, and just go to them. We're going to have to throw this ball 50, 55 times today because we cannot run it. And that's just the simple fact of the matter. We can't run it. We can't establish the run. We're putting ourselves in bad situations, and that's more than anything. It's like 1st and 10. Well, okay, then it's 2nd and 9 or 2nd and 10. Well, what's the point in that? Just throw. If you're going to do that, at least give yourself an opportunity. Throw the football. Because running it was literally giving ourselves no opportunity. I mean, it was just, I don't know. It was ugly. They should have just got to it sooner because once we did, they couldn't stop us. They really couldn't. They could not stop us once we started throwing the football.
There were some really interesting things said, Tim, in the postgame press conference. You were there. Will Howard, did he take a shot at his offensive coordinator? Real subtle. I wanted to get to it earlier because when we did, it worked. I mean, that jumped out at me.
That was interesting. Things said in frustration. Who knows how it was meant? If knowing Will Howard for the past couple of years, I don't think that it was a premeditated thing. It may be been a thing that slipped out, but he was definitely frustrated. I mean, he was maybe not as frustrated as he was after Oklahoma State. I think that's probably the most frustrated that I've seen him after a game. He was pretty disheveled after probably playing the worst game of his career. But he was angry, and other players were also not happy. Ben Sinnott, one of them, wanted to let everyone, including the media, know that they needed to stop picking on Will Howard. I don't know how prevalent that is in the media per se. I think that's more of a fan problem necessarily, but
Right.
be that as may, he has a right to say it, and I think that his message was a good one that Will has certainly earned, you know, to be should have earned the respect of fans by now. But I don't know. I don't know if that was intentional or if that was just kind of a slip on Will's part, just calling out Colin after the game. I don't know.
I mean, it could have been a slip, but I think guys are allowed to react.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing that people have to understand. He's allowed to react. Hey, he wanted to get to it sooner. He was also right. It'd be one thing if whatever he said, he was wrong, but he's not wrong. The guy's 100% correct on what he was trying to say. So I get that it may have been a slip and, you know, he probably shouldn't have said that, but I mean, he's not lying. He's definitely he wasn't lying.
Yeah. And I'll say this as we go without Fitz here, apparently. Hopefully we're still on the airwaves. I don't know. But I think to Ben Sinners' point, had Avery Johnson came in and done what Will did down the stretch, had come back from down 17-0, had forced overtime, had Avery done that, we would have said, okay, it's his team, no questions asked. He's the guy. What a performance. That was fantastic. So when Will did it, he ought to get the same amount of credit, in my opinion. Now, you could say, yeah, but he started out of the gate. He did, but once they switched the game plan, he rose to the occasion, and he played. The last, I don't know where you want to draw the line of where that turning point was. The last 2 quarters, maybe 2.5 quarters, 2 quarters plus 1 drive probably, he was really, really good.
Yeah. Once they allowed him to be in the game, he was in the game. But you mean they didn't allow him to be in the game, run it on first down, run it on second down. Oh, now you got to save us. You can't run things like that, man, when you're struggling. And that's what it seemed like. We're going to run it on first. We're going to run it again on second. Okay, Will, go make a play. Well, I mean, that's not being fair, you know, and you're 1,000% correct, Glenn. Had it been Avery that saved it, everybody would have been saying he played a great game. Will played a phenomenal game on Saturday, and nobody seems to be saying that. I got in an argument with somebody that said all the dumb mistakes that he made. I'm like, just give me one. I don't even need 5 or 10. Just give me one mistake that he made on Saturday, and I'll talk to you about it.
Even the interception wasn't his fault.
The interception wasn't his fault.
No, interception may have been the best pass that he threw all day.
Exactly.
It was a dime. He put it on the money for that pick. And I will say this, as we dive into that pick on Keegan Johnson, he bobbled it and put right in the hand of a Texas defender. After that, we saw Keegan Johnson. We never seen Keegan Johnson like that before. He was really good. I mean, at some point, I think after the interception, I kind of said to myself, I'm thinking, okay, well, if he can't catch passes like that, and if he hasn't made a spark play yet, why is he out there? And then he made me shut up because he was really good down the stretch. And this was, you guys can correct me if you think I'm wrong, this was probably the best game we've seen from the wide receivers. Outside of maybe like when they played SEMO, which I don't put a whole ton of stock in. Jace Brown was really good. Phillip Brooks was really good. And Keegan Johnson was really good.
Yeah, I mean, we finally saw kind of consistency from 3 guys. 3 guys going out there. They got open. They caught big passes when they needed to. That touchdown to Jace Brown was so pretty. I mean, just after the interception, after the interception. But they were locked in. It was super fun to watch. It's something that K-State fans probably haven't seen in a little while. Maybe I guess last year it had its moments for sure. Yeah. But if they can grow, if Keegan can get more comfortable now that he's apparently healthy, you know, Phillip had a great game last week or 2 weeks ago, and then Jace has gotten better and better every week. If that kind of core of 3 guys can kind of keep moving here, this offense is going to continue to be incredibly dangerous because obviously we know how K-State can run the ball.
You're right. Yeah, I thought the wide receivers played very, very well. And I'm just like you, Glenn. I thought at the beginning, I'm like, okay, if we're not going to be able to make these catches, I mean, because potentially Keegan Johnson could have scored a touchdown if he just catches the ball in stride. Instead, he fumbles it and they intercept it. And I'm like, oh, this is not going to be good. But the guys kept fighting back and Will kept fighting back. They kept fighting. I just got so frustrated. And again, that's the old offensive lineman. I'm like, it's just not working for us today on the ground. It's just not going to work for us on the ground. Just because Texas was not getting this killer pass rush. They got a few sacks, but it wasn't like they were just dominating us at the line of scrimmage where we couldn't protect or do anything. That wasn't the case. K-State was able to protect just fine. Just fine.
Yeah,
So,
they protected pretty well. We can dive into the whole overtime stuff here in a minute, but I guess I want to hear from you guys. My biggest concern, and hopefully we'll get Fitz back here in a sec, is I think the coaching in the room is good enough and the senior leadership is good enough that the answer to this question is yes. But the question is can this team keep hope and keep that same level? They're out of the Big 12 championship race, in my opinion. It's going to take a miracle for them to get there.
correct.
They know that. And so is there any letdown from a preparation? The Big 12 championship was the goal. So when your goal is off the table, Brian being a former player, maybe you can speak to it. Is there any, you could be going as hard as you can, but is that top notch of as hard as you can different when your goal is off the table?
Well, my experience, and I'll be honest, it was a horrible experience in 1998. We had the national chain. We're literally a play away from the national championship game, and we lost. So going into the bowl game, I don't even know, and I'll be honest, I don't know that we even practiced 10 times going into the game. We were just everybody, the entire organization, the entire football, K-State football organization, it was just all in flux. We couldn't believe it. Just shell-shocked. This is different because it's during the season and there's still a lot to play for. I mean, do you want to go and lose to Kansas? I mean, do you want to go do that? You know, we got Baylor this week. We should be able to handle Baylor. Kansas is really good.
Yeah.
And you know how that is for me to say that, but they are. Do we want to go lose? And I go, and if you don't go and play well against Kansas, they're going to embarrass us.
Yeah.
That's the thing, is that if we go there and start the way that we started against Texas, Kansas will be up 24-0 and before we know it. So do you want that to happen? Iowa State isn't a slouch. So do you want the season to go into a tank or do you not? And with the leadership that we keep saying, you know, and I like what Ben Sinnott said after the game. I don't like it. I love it. I love it. That means I think they still got some fight in them. I think they still got some fight because I absolutely, I know some people are turned off and upset and no. He's sticking up for his guy who played a hell of a football game, who's done a hell of a job all year. He had one bad game this year and everybody's trying to throw him under the bus. He's like, get on board or get off board. I'm with him. And
I think probably is a sign that the program's in a good spot. If are they 6-3 now? And so we're talking about they could win 10 games and we're saying, what a bummer of a year, right? Like,
correct.
Exactly.
That's probably a pretty good sign.
Well, and then the other part is, you know, mathematically, you're not eliminated. Last year, they needed some extra help. They needed some losses to go their way in the last, you know, quarter of the season to make the Big 12 championship game. So I'm sure that's also being said, and just like, you know, it's not 100% over. You never know what's going to happen. All that you can control is how you prepare and how you go about your business every day. There's a standard that's been set. I don't think that standard changes whether or not they're able to make the title game or not. I mean, if anything, you know, for a lot of these guys, you know, this is about building in the next year, figuring out kind of what, you know, how are we going to bridge this success forward to become that team? I mean, to become a team like, you know, somehow Oklahoma State has been, where you are just perennially at the top of the Big 12 every year. You're that team. To become that team that everyone knows they need to beat to be the best in the conference. And I feel like everyone in that locker room believes that starting next year, K-State can be one of those teams that's kind of holding the keys to the castle for the Big 12 conference and finishing strong. And, you know, being able to say, hey, we had, you know, 2 10-win seasons in a row.
Right.
Is pretty good. I mean, that's a pretty strong way to kind of bridge into this new future of the Big 12.
Right. And Tim, I don't even think it had to be, it's next year. I mean, Texas had to beat us for them to get to the Big 12 title game. So it wasn't like, that we were this other team. It's like, we're that team now that teams have to beat to get to the Big 12. I mean, Texas literally had to beat. If we beat them, they're not going to the Big 12 title game ahead of us. That's just not going to happen, But on another note, you're exactly right again, Tim, because Oklahoma State just played the most important game in the history of their program. If anybody is going to have a letdown game, it's going to be them. I mean, they literally just won the biggest game in the history of their program. And so if there's a letdown, it's got to be from them. I'm not saying there's going to be, and they're better than the teams that they're going to play against. But if there's a letdown game, that would be the team to let down. So continue to do your business, continue to prepare the way that you know how to prepare, and go out and handle your business and let the chips fall where they may.
Yeah, K-State would need what? 2 Oklahoma State losses and 2 Texas losses? 2 more, that is?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
Because they both have 1 loss right now, and if they just lose 1 more, they're going to have the same number of losses. But,
correct.
Okay, we'll go rapid fire. Going for it on 4th down instead of field goal tie. What do you guys think?
I don't like it. I
This
hated
is good.
And the reason I hated it, you didn't move the ball an inch on 3 separate plays in a row. If you're not moving the ball and it's 4th and 4, I can go for it if it's 4th and 2 or 4th and 1. 4th and 4, kick the field goal. And it's not only that, Texas offense was finished. That's my whole point. Texas's offense, we had figured it out. They couldn't throw the ball over our head because you're starting on the 25-yard line. We had figured them out. They were done. They were going to do nothing but kick field goals because they could not score